My speech title is Methods of Encouragement. And the purpose of my speech is to present a proposal to you all. I had to look up what proposal actually meant, the technical definition. And it's a plan or suggestion, written or formal, put forward to an audience for their consideration or discussion. So I thought to myself, what area of my life would I like to present a proposal about? And I thought, my faith. And so, when it comes to encouragement, I've tried to have people in my life to encourage me to have greater faith. So, the gist of my speech is I'm going to provide a historical example of somebody who provided encouragement and was encouraged, talk about how it's affected my own life, and then try to provide you guys with a little bit of encouragement for your own lives. So, to start off, has anybody heard of the book, The 5 Love Languages? Mm-hmm. Can anybody name any of the 5 love languages?
Yeah. Touch,
Yep.
communication, or gifts.
Yep.
Don't remember the others.
Alright, so gifts, touch, acts of service, quality time, and words of affirmation are the ones that author used in his book. I'm not going to talk about the book specifically in this speech, but those themes are going to come in throughout it. So the historical example that I wanted to use was Paul, the apostle, back in roughly the years 30 to 65. And on one of his missionary journeys, he went to the town of Philippi. And this was roughly in the year 52. And then he went through a lot of other things in his life. But the last couple of years of his life, he was in prison in Rome. And he was thinking back to the people in his life that had positively affected him and kind of encouraged him throughout it. So his trip to Rome was a little convoluted. He was in the city of Jerusalem, and he was accused of causing riots. And because of this, there were about 40 men who vowed to kill him. They made this oath, and the Roman rulers got word of it. And so, under guard, they sent him to the coast to appear before some of the other local the other Roman rulers of that area. So he appeared before King Agrippa and a guy named Festus, and he was accused of bringing up these riots. So he ends up appealing to Caesar and says that he wants to go to Rome to talk to Caesar about these accusations. So he ends up embarking through the Mediterranean Sea towards Rome, and he ends up he goes through various towns along the way, and he ends up getting shipwrecked on the island of Malta, which is to the south of the current country of Italy. And finally, after getting shipwrecked in Malta, he finds another ship and makes it to Rome, where he's in prison under house arrest. So this is roughly 10 years after he had visited the city of Philippi, which is in modern-day Greece, and he writes a letter to the Philippians, and he thanks them for praying for him, for sending money to him, and for also sending people back and forth to distribute these letters that provided the encouragement. So prayer, sending money to provide support for him while he's in prison, because back in the day, governments didn't really provide financial support to prisoners. They kind of just let them rot in prison. And then also sending people. So that's kind of the historical example that I was using. And then I'm going to provide some examples from my own life, not quite as extreme. So I was married about 4 years ago, and my daughter was born about 3 years ago as well. Actually, I picked her up last night, and so she's here staying with us. So I thought this was appropriate. I separated from my wife about 3 years ago as well, and then I moved to California, not this summer, but the previous summer. And again, not quite as bad as Paul, but on the way down here from where I lived in Washington, I got a flat tire near Reading, and so I was in a manner shipwrecked for a couple hours trying to fix my car. But throughout the time that I've been here in California specifically, I've had a lot of encouragement from people throughout my life, from my family who provided some financial support like Paul received in going through the selling of my house and also through the divorce. There have been going on 7 families that have watched my daughter for me while I've been in school here and come to Toastmasters and various things like that. There have been a lot of people who have prayed for me and provided letters of encouragement. One guy specifically in this town has written me a lot, and we've gotten a lot of letters from him. So through all this, I've had a lot of encouragement through some trying times in my life. And getting back to the proposal, I'm moving soon to a new location, and so I want to find a similar location, the next place I live, with similar people that can provide the same sort of encouragement as far as helping with my daughter, potentially financial support if I need it, and then also just encouraging me in my faith in general. So that is my proposal, to find people in our lives to encourage us in the areas that we think are important. So my encouragement to you is first to find out what is most important in your lives. Then to nurture relationships that will provide that sort of encouragement in those areas, in that area specifically of your life. And then also, and this might be most important, to also encourage those people that are encouraging you along the way. And I think our lives will be better because of that. Thank you.
And especially Gordon, the project that Gordon was giving was the presentation of a project which was part of the innovative planning path. And I was able to bring it up on here, even though it was not printed out. So trying to go high-tech here, we'll sort of see how that works out. The purpose was for the member to practice developing and presenting a proposal and deliver a well-organized speech about the proposal. And it could affect any area of the member's personal, professional life, or even the Toastmasters Club. And so the purpose, as I understand, of your proposal was to encourage finding people to encourage us. To that extent, the topic of your speech met the criteria of the project, so very well done. It was well organized at the beginning. You basically told us what you were going to tell us, and then you proceeded to tell us, and I'll get to the conclusion a little bit later. Some of the things that the project is looking for actually have to do more with the delivery, so they ask about your voice and gestures and things like that. Your voice projected very well. I was all the way in the back, and I could hear you just fine. I love the timbre of your voice. It's nice and deep and resonant, so I think that's one of your strongest points on that. Your stories were very interesting. You went through the narrative of Paul the Apostle, which many of us are familiar with, but we may not be. And then you related it to things that you were going through yourself. I particularly liked how you related getting a flat tire with Paul being shipwrecked. So that was a very, very nice connection. Now, some suggestions. I would have liked to have heard more about the people in your life who have helped you with some specific obstacles that you have encountered. In fact, it sounded like there were a plethora of them, from the flat tire to going through a divorce. And so, to that end, you could have saved some time, for example, by giving some things you said in the beginning about the purpose of the speech as the introduction for the Toastmaster, so the Toastmaster could have said it, and then you would have saved that time. The second thing is that the love languages was, I think that's a great topic for a speech, but I didn't see how that related, and that took a lot of time. And it took a little extra time because you asked us if we heard of it, yes, raise the hand, but then when you go on to say, could you name one? I don't think that that contributed to the purpose of your speech. So I think it would have been enough to say, raise your hand if you've heard of it, and then go on from there. So my suggestion is to, you spent a lot of time talking about the narrative of Paul, and a lot of it was about the narrative, and I think I would have cut that down and focused mostly on the challenges and how he overcame the challenges through people who encouraged him. And in fact, the one who encouraged him most, of course, was Christ. So, and that's someone who encourages you as well. And so that could have been a nice connection, because I've heard speeches of yours before where you've talked about your faith and how important that is. I think that would have really nailed this very well. I think one of the strongest aspects of the speech was in fact your conclusion, because what I liked about your conclusion is you gave us a takeaway. You said that this is what you can take away, and you not only summarized what you'd said, but you gave us something to take out of here, and I found that very inspiring. So I look forward to many more in this path, and it's a very interesting one. So congratulations on that, and I now return control to our Toastmaster.